Jared, I'm rolling.
Oh. Hey everyone, I'm Jared. Are you like most guys where you like to eat delicious food but you don't like to cook delicious food, or you just think it's too hard and don't know how? Well, I'm here to help change all of that in a new segment that I'm calling Bachelor On a Budget. Now, you might not show up with 12 long stem roses, but you can show up with a hot cast iron full of mac and cheese, and that's even better, right? So the first thing I'm going to teach you how to do is to make homemade pasta, because it's one of my favorite things, and we're going to turn that into some 3-cheese mac and cheese. Now, some things that you're definitely going to need to get started are some whole milk or heavy cream, works great as well if you have it. We have 3 kinds of cheese, 2 kinds will work just fine. You definitely need some butter and some flour and some eggs. And that's really just about all you need to get started. So let's get cheesy. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is whip together a couple of eggs in a bowl. And then what we want to do is to get a cup and turn it upside down, and we're going to sift 2 cups of flour over it. Now the reason why we have this cup and why we turned it over is so that we can make a well to pour our eggs into. And this is going to help keep everything nice and clean. So I do about a little bit less than 2 cups of flour depending on the humidity. You can always add more flour later, but you can't take flour out. So you take your cup off, and we have a nice well going there. And then we're just going to take a good 3-finger pinch of salt and sprinkle it all around. And then we'll take our already beaten eggs and pour it right there in the well. Now everything is done right here on the countertop, and it's okay if it spills over a little bit, because we're just going to do everything right here with our hands right on the countertop. And we're going to keep working this and just work it. And you might find that it starts off a little bit dry, but as we work the eggs in and as we get everything mixed together, everything will come together. Pro tip. As we're doing this, one thing that really helps is to invest in a pastry scraper. Now I know that we said we're on a budget, but this is only a 90-cent, maybe $1 device. And as you use it, this will really help with cleanup later and to help mix your dry ingredients into your wet ingredients. Okay, so we've kneaded this all together. We've kneaded our eggs and our flour all together into a nice cohesive ball. Now, you may, depending on your humidity and how much flour you use, you may have to add a little bit of warm water along the way. I added about a 1/4 cup of warm water, and you just kind of add a little bit as you go. Now, you want to keep kneading this until it gets a little bit of sponginess and springiness to it. You want to be able to poke your finger in and see it start to rebound a little bit. And if it's not, then you just need to keep working and keep kneading it for a while. And then once it's got a good consistency, you just get yourself some saran wrap or some cling film, or even just a plastic grocery bag if that's all you have, and wrap it up nice and tight so you can get all the air out of it. And then we're going to let this sit and rest for about 30 minutes in a cool or warm place. It really doesn't matter. Just kind of let it sit by itself. I like to put it in my kitchen drawer here, and just come back in 30 minutes and we'll work it into the shape we want to. Alright, so after about 30 minutes, we're going to take our pasta out of the saran wrap, and we're going to start rolling it into little cones. And they're going to look like gnocchis at this point. And if you don't have a pasta machine, this is the easiest way to do it. Just take the back end of your knife, flatten it around, and they're going to look like little cavatellis, or almost like little shells. And you just do this until you've used up all the pasta and you have a nice big pot full of these shells. And then we're going to boil these for only about 3 to 5 minutes. Fresh pasta doesn't need to boil for as long as the store-bought pasta does. So just kind of keep an eye on it. And you just want it to be a little bit al dente, maybe fork tender. And then we'll mix in our cheese and we'll show you what to do from there. Alright, so we're going to start making our sauce. And what we'll do first is melt about a 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons of butter in our pot here. And then we're going to make a roux. So we're going to take an equal amount of flour and just mix it all together, and it's going to form a paste. And we're going to have to do this part quickly because we don't want the roux to start burning, and we don't want the flour to start burning to the pot or anything like that. So we'll just start mixing everything together until everything combines. And you can see it's starting to form a paste in the bottom of the pot. And we've got this on about a medium heat of 5.5 or 6 on a scale of 10 on the stove. And everything's kind of coming together into a paste. And now what we're going to do is take about 2.5 cups of milk, 2.5 to 3 cups of milk, and just pour that right in there. So we'll start with just a little bit, and that way the roux can kind of get used to the milk. And if you don't make a roux at the beginning, you can get away without making the roux, but this is going to make everything thicker and it's going to make everything more creamy, and it's just going to yield a better quality product. So we've mixed in a little bit of milk at first, just to kind of get the roux used to the milk, and then we pour the rest in until we've got scant amount, about 3 cups in. Then we get everything nice and hot, and we're going to bring it to about a simmer. So we're going to crank this up to about a 7.5 or an 8. And once we see bubbles start to form, it'll start to boil, it'll start to simmer. We can turn it back down to about a 5 and add our cheese. Alright, so it's starting to bubble a little bit, and that's what we want because things are starting to condense and get a little creamy. So I'm turning it down to about a 5.5, and we're going to add our cheese in. First we get some white cheddar, then I've got some yellow cheddar also. And then just to kind of kick it up a notch, I have some Gruyere. Now you don't necessarily have to add Gruyere. I know we're on a budget, but if you have a few extra dollars lying around, it's really going to bring it up to the next level. So in all, we've added about 2 cups of cheese, and I've got a wooden spoon, and I'm just going to bring it all together. It shouldn't take any longer than about 3 or 4 minutes for everything to come together and for the cheese to get fully incorporated into this sauce. And we turned it down to about a 5.5, because we don't want this to burn. We just want the cheese to get incorporated into the cream and into the roux, and we want everything to come together into one nice cohesive sauce. And then while that's happening, we're going to come and take all of our cavatelli and all of our pasta and throw it into the water. Now this should all take about the same amount of time. Fresh pasta doesn't take any longer than 3 to 5 minutes max to come together and to get fully cooked to al dente. Box pasta might take a little bit longer. It takes about 8 to 10, maybe 12 for box pasta, depending on the kind that you get. But when you make homemade pasta, it doesn't take that long. So I just use my pastry scraper, get as many as you can, right up on there in your scraper, and then drop it right in. Now when you incorporate the pasta into the water, of course, it may stop boiling there for a second, just because you're introducing something cold into something hot. And then once your cheese starts bubbling and you feel like everything's really come together, to keep everything from burning, you just turn it down to a simmer, maybe onto a 1 or to a 2. We're going to set a kitchen timer for 4 minutes, and at that point our pasta should be done. And then we're really going to kick it up another notch and throw it in the oven for about 10-15 minutes. Alright, so as you can see, we put the pasta in the cast iron, we covered it with our cheese and got a liberal sprinkling of breadcrumbs on there. We threw it in a 425-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending how quickly your breadcrumbs are going to brown. Get that nice crispy golden crust on there. And now on Valentine's Day, you can share it with whoever you care about. And until then, stay cheesy.